After analyzing all of the Battanian units, I think it's time to make a Battanian tier list. As you can see in here, I have 6 different tiers, going from S to F, or let's say the OP tier to the avoid tier. In S, I will place the units that I think you always want, no matter the army. If you find these guys around, you always want to pick them up. In the A tier, it's a similar unit, doesn't quite have the same strength of the OP guys, but they are a very good unit that you want to pick up nonetheless. When it comes to the B tier, on the other hand, we have units that are good, but just in the Battanian concept. They are probably not very strong outside of the Battanian army, and they require some very specific compositions in order to work. In the C tier, on the other hand, there are decent units. These are units that you can run in any army. They are not too bad, but not too great either. In the D tier, we have what I call tech units. They're very good at doing one thing, and that's what they do. That's why you pick them up. And in the F tier, as you might expect, those are the units that you should always avoid. No, not just in a Battanian army, but any army whatsoever. These are units that are only good for garrisons. Let's start by starting from that point exactly, listing the first F tier unit, which is unsurprisingly going to be the Battanian Horseman. Alright, why the Battanian Horseman is the only unit, in my opinion, in the Battanian 3 that you should completely avoid? Well, there are many reasons, and you know, being the worst cavalry unit in the game, in terms, not only probably by the way they look, I don't think they look very cool, but also, you know, data wise and test wise, these guys perform horribly. It doesn't really matter where you place them, if they are against archers, against spear units, against unspeared units, against, you know, when dismounted in sieges, these guys are just awful. And the main reason for that, when it comes to the cavalry, it's because of a combination between the lance, which is just too long, and also the shield as well plays a role. It's a little shield, so a lot of projectiles are gonna make it through. They're gonna hit the horse, they're gonna hit the rider. The horse armor is sporty, which I think is fine for horse armors. There are a few units that have worse, and you can really feel when like a unit doesn't have the greatest horse armor ever. But I think the Battanian Horseman is at a decent point with 40 armor from the half scale barding, and the horse as well is kind of fine. You know, it's not the speediest horse ever, which is kind of what you want on your spearmen, so they have a larger window to land a lance shot, and the HP are 240, which I think is fine. But the thing that really brings this unit down on the other side when it comes to dismounting is the helmet. The helmet has only 25 head armor, and even if you go to the other template here, you can see that the helmet is still the same. The only thing that changes between one template and the other is the main weapon. In one we have the Fine Steel Cavalry Broadsword, which is kind of a nice weapon for mounted units, but it's pretty bad for infantry units, and on the other side we have the One-Handed Bearded Axe, which is the other way around. It's a nice weapon for infantry units, it's a bit terrible for mounted troops, but you know, this weapon can still do a good chunk of damage when mounted as well. When it comes to the body armor on the other side, I think the Horseman is kind of fine. 44 body armor, that's okay. The leg armor is the best in the game, 26. The scale boots are the best boots in the game, but as you can see, it's not enough. This unit, if you've seen the analysis of this unit, it's just terrible. But let's go forward to the next one. Going forward, we have the Veteran Falksman in the tech unit category, in the D tier. Now, I think this is gonna upset many people that I'm gonna place this unit in the tech tier, because I am not a big fan of this unit, and I know a lot of people who are. And I honestly don't understand why. Because this unit has nothing good really. Honestly, the armor is kinda good on this unit. But it's not enough when your weapon is that long and that's low. The problem of the Veteran Falksman is not the armor, it's not the two throwing axes. I think the two throwing axes are very nice, especially in a Battanian army that is very heavy on throwables. But the problem is that weapon. This weapon is advertised as an horse slayer, but unfortunately, when you go into it and you do some testing, it really isn't, because the problem with this weapon is that it's too long, right? It doesn't deliver enough damage to the horse, it's too long, and in return the Veteran Falksman will just take a lot of damage. And when it comes to infantry on the other side, they don't keep the distance. There used to be a point in Bannerlord a couple of patches ago where shock troops were very good at keeping distance between them and the enemy. But in 1.8 it looks like they no longer do that. They just stick to the enemy, like they have a very short weapon, And for the veteran marksman, this is terrible, because when they try to swing, they need like 3 or 4 hits to take down somebody. And when you consider that this weapon can deliver 141 base damage, you know, you might expect this unit to one-shot troops, but unfortunately it just doesn't. So these guys are in a very bad position in 1.8. Hopefully the AI of the troops can change going forward and these guys will do a lot better. But yeah, right now the only good thing to say about the veteran marksmen are those two set of island throwing axes, which is very nice, and the armor. The armor is quite nice on this unit. The helmet is 46, which is good. I think, you know, above 45 is a good place to be when it comes to armor in Bannerlord for high tier troops. And the body armor as well is 48. It's unfortunate that this is the end of the veteran marksman. This is where they place. I think they can get a lot better if the AI is improved on these kind of units, but right now they are a pretty bad unit that you really need a strong captain build in order to have them work very well. So going forward, I am gonna go up a tier again, and we are gonna place the Oathsworn in the decent tier. Alright, so why is the Oathsworn in the decent tier? You know, if you've seen my analysis, you know that I'm not very fond of this unit. There are a lot of downsides, but this unit brings a lot of upsides too. It's one of those weird units that sits right in the middle of like performance at times and can do very well and horrible at the same time. That's because the template of these units are very polarizing. You know, one of them is very good, and it's this one you're looking at right now, which, you know, brings the same spear of the horseman, so they have the same problem. The spear is just too long. They bring a Battanian shield, and as you know from the analysis, the Battanian shields are not very good at all. They're not very good at tanking any projectile, doesn't matter if they are large or not. But the weapon of the Battanian Oathsworn is very, very nice. This is one of my favorite weapons when it comes to infantry. I do love short weapons that can swing very fast and deal 70 plus damage. They are my favorites, and they also bring some axes. Now, one of the reasons why this unit is on the decent side and not in the strong synergy is the lack of the axes. They only have 3, and in my opinion, when you need to compete for that infantry role with the wildling who brings 10 javelins, that's just not enough. When it comes to the armor, this template is quite nice on the armor. The body armor of Battanian infantry is very, very nice, and the head armor in this template of the Oathsworn is very good. But if we go to the other template, all of a sudden the head armor is awful. 26 head armor, and considering that they only have 2 templates, that means that half of the Oathsworn are gonna have these helmet. That's really what drags this troop down, because if they had 2 sets where they had decent helmets, like the Ridge Helm, you know, even in the other template, all of a sudden this unit is probably, I'd say, a mid-tier infantry. They can do very well, they have that versatility bonus with the axes. Yeah, it's a shame the Oathsworn is this way. And one of the other things, in my opinion, that really makes the Oathsworn not a worthwhile unit is the troop line. Because the picked warrior doesn't have any throwables, the trained warrior doesn't have any throwables, and the clan warrior is the only one that brings some, but they are daggers, while the line of the wildlings brings throwables all the way. So if your army relies on throwables, all of a sudden this line is just not very good, is it? You're gonna have tier 2, tier 3 and tier 4 bringing either nothing or, well, very little. And you need to rely on the tier 5s to get some throwable bonus. And there are only 3 axes, you need 9 axes to go through a shield, so yeah, it's gonna take a long time to chew down that wood, you know? Alright, next up, we are gonna move up a tier again, and we're gonna start with the units that have a strong synergy. And, you know, we just talked about the Oathsworn, so let's talk about his comrade and place the wildling in the B tier. So why is the wildling in the B tier? Despite, you know, if you've seen the analysis, this unit is terrible in melee. But, you know, melee efficiency is not all that matters when it comes to a troop. Sometimes you need to think about the rest of the equipment. And the wildlings, one of their upsides, and the reason why they are so well renowned, is the 10 javelins. If your army relies on throwables, or if you want to build a Battanian army that relies on throwables, you just simply cannot play without wildlings. 10 javelins that can be extended by, you know, to 12 or even 14 with perks, and you can increase the damage and you can increase the accuracy of their throwables and stuff. It's really worth it. And in one of my next videos, I don't know if it's gonna be in a few weeks or maybe in a few days, I'm gonna go through my favorite Battanian templates when it comes to armies, and I'm gonna use captain builds and stuff to showcase how good they can be. Going forward, we have the shield. It's the same as the Otson, suffers the same problems of any Battanian shield. I think we can go through that. The main weapon is unfortunately the Fine Steel Cavalry Broadsword, which is the same the Horseman has, at least one of the two the Horseman has. And unfortunately for infantry, this weapon is quite bad. I don't like it, it's slow, the damage is fine, but know if you need to trade all of that speed, and the length at 117 is actually long. It's very long for an infantry unit. As we said before, body armor on Battanian units is generally quite fine, it's very good, and the Wildling actually has the best body armor in the game when it comes to infantry. They have a value of 69, so that's a nice one, you know, that's a very nice one. What is not nice about the Wildling is the helmet. They have the same helmet of the Battanian Horseman, and you know, it's a light helmet, 25 head armor, that's just straight up awful. And that is unfortunately one of the major weaknesses of the entire line. You know, the Woodrunner has like either no helmet or a little hoodie. The Skirmisher has a very low armor too, that is 12. The Veteran Skirmisher has very low armor as well with 20. But one good thing about the entire Wildling line is that they bring throwables. The Veteran Skirmisher will bring 10 javelins, the Skirmisher will bring 8 javelins, and the Woodrunner will bring 4 javelins. So all of these line, even the low tiers, will help you out in your playstyle of throwing stuff at the enemy, which is something the Otson didn't do. And this is why, in my opinion, the Wildling gets the extra spot over the Otson and is a very synergic unit with a Battanian army. Going forward with the next unit, we are gonna stay in the B tier and we're gonna add the Mounted Skirmisher, a unit that definitely was a big winner out of 1.8. And let's explain why, shall we? So one good thing about the Mounted Skirmisher is you can see right there, do you see that throwing? 150. Now, generally speaking, tier 5 units, you know, 130 is generally where their stats are. And 150 for the Mounted Skirmisher is amazing. One other thing I didn't say about the Wildling, they have extra athletics in comparison, but they have worse one-handed. But yeah, the Mounted Skirmisher has an impressive value of 150 throwing that you can stack up using some captain perks. You can bring that up to 170 at least, and that means that their javelins are gonna deal more damage and they have a better chance of landing on an enemy. And if you've seen the analysis video, you know that these guys are deadly when they can use their javelins and they can fire them, especially towards an armored units. But even armored units, these guys are quite good, even at dealing with infantry. They can really rack up kills very fast. And with some perks you can bring that stack amount up to 6 or 7 very easily. Their negatives, of course, are the shield, as for any Battanian unit. They bring this weapon, which is nice when they are mounted, not very nice when they are dismounted. Armor wise, the Mounted Skirmisher is a bit of a strange unit, because they bring just enough armor to be no awful. They bring 40 body armor between the Chainful Cloak and the upscale mail. The head armor is fine at 46. The horse is the same as the horseman, so you know, a fine horse. The armor is 40 as well on the horse, which is quite nice. You know, that's, I think 40 is a nice value, like I said, for the horseman. A lot of cavalry units in the game have 40 or more. There are just a few that have less. But going forward, and I will talk about those units that have less horse armor, you really see the difference between a unit like the Mounted Skirmisher and the way they can deal with infantry, and a unit like a Sturgeon Horse Raider, for example, and the way they deal with infantry. When it comes to being dismounted, these guys are not very good, unfortunately. The weapon, in my opinion. They have 50% chance of getting a Fine Steel Cavalry Broadsword, and they are not the tankiest unit to ever exist, so they struggle. But overall speaking, the Battanian Mounted Skirmisher is a very nice unit that is a big winner out of 1.8, because the javelins are now useful in 1.8. They actually eat what they are supposed to most of the times. And same thing that we said about the Wildling, the Mounted Skirmisher benefits from the line. The line that is full of throwables, and you know, the only thing you need to upgrade these guys is a warhorse, which you can get very easily if you have a couple of medicine packs, or you can just buy them for pretty cheap in some towns. Right, moving forward, we're going to go up one tier to the A tier, and I'm going to be placing one of my favorite troops, the Falksman. Reason being, it has one of my favorite weapons in the game. Let's be honest, why the Battanian Falksman is so good? Well, you know, doesn't matter what I say, this guy will heavily rely on that weapon. It's the only thing it has in his equipment. All of his templates just change the armor around. So he's always gonna bring the same weapon. Unfortunately, as you can see from here, the encyclopedia doesn't give it justice. But I will place the real stats of the weapon up on the screen somewhere. But they do have 102 swing speed, so exceptionally fast, 126 damage, which is very high for a two-handed sword, and 111 length, so the length is not even that long, which is very nice. The handling is very high at 91 as well. One thing that we need to consider when looking at this weapon is that it delivers extra damage to shields. So it's basically an axe that just doesn't cleave. That's what this weapon is. It's on a tier 4 unit, which the only bad thing that I have to say about the Falksman is that they don't really have good armor. In this template they have 46 head armor, in this one they still have 46, but in this one they drop all the way to 20. So the average at the end of the day for the Falksman is not great when it comes to head armor. And the body doesn't get any better, because it's 38, 35 and 38 again. So the body armor as well, it's nice for a tier 4 unit, but not very good when you need to fight tier 5s and stuff. But you know, generally in Bannerlord, at least in the vanilla game, you don't really need to fight a lot of high tier troops. Generally the troops you are most likely to face are between tier 1 and tier 4, with a few tier 5 here and there. Being good against high tiers in this game, in my opinion, is not very impactful. It's nice to have a unit that is reliable against high tiers, but I do prefer a unit that can really win reliably against low tiers, because that's what you're mostly going to face. And this unit does exactly that. It's way better in melee than his bigger brother here, the veteran Falksman. It's even better at killing cavalry, believe it or not. I wanted to disprove that the Battanian Falksman was better against cavalry, but unfortunately I couldn't. Everything I tried, there was nothing I could have done. They always perform better than the veteran Falksman. And that to me means that, you know, there is something wrong about the veteran Falksman. And I don't think there is something wrong with the unit itself, I think there is something wrong with the AI. That's what makes the Falksman, in my opinion, that good, and it's a unit that you should always consider no upgrading. For the last unit, if you play this game a little bit and you have tested them out, you know what's coming. It's the only troop remaining. It's the Fiang champion in the OP tier. These guys are absolutely insane. Let's quickly go over why. Alright, why are the Fiang champions stupidly good? The first thing you can see from here, they do have 222 handed and 260 bow. Now when it comes to the athletics, it's only 170, but I think athletics is kind of unimportant, because there are so many perks in the captain builds that will allow you to improve the speed of a formation. So athletics at the end of the day, I don't think it's really that useful. What I really consider on the Fian is that 260 bow and that 222 wended. But let's start by, you know, covering the equipment. They have the Woodland Longbow, which is the best bow a Bannerlord unit can get. Now there are better bows in the game, you know, Noble Longbow for example, but nobody can really use a Noble Longbow and be recruitable. You know, you can give it to a companion and stuff and they're gonna be amazing, but troops are only limited to stuff that is a little bit more down to earth. It's a very good bow though. It's you know, it reloads slowly, but that doesn't matter, because one of the things that bow skill does, and the Fian has 260 of it, is increasing the reload speed. So at the end of the day, these guys will still reload faster than most archers in the game, and the damage, the base damage is 76. And the 260 bow skill, once again, will improve that damage. So yeah, you can see why these guys are nuts. The accuracy is 94, but once again, the 260 bow skill will improve that. So it's gonna go probably at 99, and they're gonna have possibly one of the best accuracy you can get. And there is also one perk which you can get like extremely quickly at 25 in bow, that will increase the skill of the formation by another 20 points. So yeah, these guys can get absolutely nuts. And it doesn't get any less nuts when we talk about the arrows. They have 2 stacks, no, just one, 2 stacks of Bodkin arrows. This is one of the best quivers in the game. They have a base of 32 that can be improved with perks, and you know, you already know, anything can be improved with perks pretty much. And they do bring an extra 3 damage. Now, when it comes to arrows, I'm not very big on the damage increase. I think what really matters for a quiver is the stack amount. So in my opinion, the stack step arrows that bring 36 arrows are the best you can get, because you just get more arrows. Even if they deliver less damage, it doesn't matter, because if you fire more arrows, at the end of the day you deliver more damage. It's a very, very good set of quivers, and they adds up to 64 base arrows, so these guys are gonna be shooting forever. You place them on a hill, they are gonna kill anything they see. When it comes to the weapon, it's the Island Fine two-handed sword. It's a hybrid sword, so unfortunately the encyclopedia will list it as a one-handed sword, but up in here I'm gonna be placing you the actual stats. So the actual stats of this weapon are 102 swing speed, so very high, and remember it's improved by the 220 two-handed skill, the 97 damage, which is a bit on the low side, not gonna lie, but the skill is gonna improve that. And they do have 107 length. So the length is short, and this weapon will not get stuck on anything. They will always hit the target, they will always kill what's in front of them. And because they have 220 base skill, they are gonna deflect a lot of incoming attacks. Because if you didn't know, the skill of a character actually improves their ability as a warrior. If you use a mod, one of my favorite mods is character reload, and you give the nobles like 300 in their one-handed abilities, for example, they are gonna be held to fight in tournaments. You are really gonna have a tough time in tournaments beating them, even with good stats. Because once you go over 300, you get the best possible AI, as far as I know. And they do make like some fakes, you know, they fake like from the left and then they go from an overhead strike. And the Fiends kinda do that, but generally speaking, what you are gonna see a lot from these guys is deflection. They are gonna deflect pretty much anything. And even if they don't deflect, they have extremely good armor. They start with 50 head armor, and they have, in my opinion, one of the coolest helmets in the game. I do love the look of the Island Crown helmet. Yeah, I had to check, I didn't remember the name. Because unfortunately, this helmet has been a few patches now that just doesn't spawn in towns. Tailward still needs to find a way to make their items spawn correctly, because this is one of the helmets that I never find. It doesn't matter how long I go in a campaign, you know, I can go 30-40 years and yet this item doesn't spawn, and the only way I can get it is by cheating. I need to open the console and take it from there. When it comes to the body armor, on the other hand, it's very nice. Again, it's 48 on the Highborn male, and it's another 16 from the rough bear skin. And yes, they do add up, they don't count as different times, they will add up. So these guys are extremely tanky for being an archer unit. They will suffer on the arm and the legs, but it doesn't matter. If you've seen the analysis video on these guys, you know they absolutely rock. These guys are pretty much better than most infantry units when fighting, and you can use them as shock troops if you don't want them to fire. You can just unleash them and they are gonna kill anything. If you like these videos, you're probably gonna love the Battanian playlist, where I do analyze all of these units I just ranked. But yeah guys, there you have it. This is my Battanian tier list. The Fiend Champion sits on the throne. The tier 4 Falksman is a very good unit. The Wildling and the Mounted Skirmisher are a very strong synergy. The Oddsworn is decent. The Veteran Falksman is a tech unit. And the only unit you should always avoid when it comes to Battania is the Battanian Horseman. And yeah, there you have it. Thanks for watching guys. We'll see you in the next video. And we're gonna start to cover the Aserai units, my personal favorite faction in the game. See you next time.